Okay, you guys should be able to see my screen with the presentation doing business with Cook County. Can you all see that? Okay.
We can see it. You might have to talk just a little bit
Oh,
louder. You have such a soft voice.
I'm sorry.
I have such a loud voice.
No, my headphones are going out.
Oh, there it is. Oh,
Yeah,
you're
there we
loud.
go. Okay,
Yep.
sounds good. So thank you for that introduction, Dr. Butler. Like she said, my name is Sheena Akins, and I'm a Deputy Chief Procurement Officer here at Cook County, working under Rafi Sarafian. He is our Chief Procurement Officer, and I'm over the operations unit. So everything along with procurements, I handle daily operations of systems, reporting, all of the tools that we use to do procurements in general. So that's my area. I'll go ahead and dive right in, but like I mentioned earlier, if you guys can't hear me, please let me know. I know these headphones are going out, and if you have questions, you're free to save them to the end, but also I don't mind if you guys stop and ask during the presentation while it's still fresh. And I'll get to those as Dr. Butler lets me know that you guys have them. So I will just go ahead and dive right in. So with the presentation, the first part of this, I have the actual PowerPoint. And then after that, we'll do live demos of some of the sites that I mentioned in the PowerPoint and some of the forms that we go over throughout the presentation so you guys can become more familiar with those aspects of doing business with OCPO. Okay. Uh-oh. There we go. All right, so the mission of the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer is to provide an open and transparent procurement process that promotes maximum competition, delivers procurement opportunities to our community, implements procurement best practices, and leverages the county's overall resources to achieve best value. Some of the values that we have in OCPR are integrity, innovation, continuous improvement, commitment to customer service, educating and empowering users and stakeholders. So I'll speak a lot about the innovation piece because there is one major aspect of our procurement process that is fairly new since COVID, maybe within 2 or 3 years. And then this presentation right here is an example of educating and empowering our users, right? We want to make sure that you guys are well informed on how to get contracts with us, the contracts and opportunities that are out there, and how to go about filling out paperwork and responding to any opportunity that we post to the public. We are promulgated by the Cook County Procurement Code, which is available on our website, but everything we do is in conjunction with what's required in our Cook County Procurement Code. And I can provide the link to that if you guys are just curious about some of the ins and outs of what that entails. All right. So some of the priorities that we've had within the last year or so are expanding opportunities. And again, doing these webinars, we're training our users on how to, or our vendors on how to do business with Cook County, and then having our vendor expos. Those are ways in which we are trying to achieve that goal of expanding opportunities. So like I said, we try to make our process as efficient, customer friendly, open and transparent as possible. Some of the priorities that we do have are to ensure fair and transparent competition. So that means that everyone has the same opportunities to bid on projects and the requirements are the same for everyone, depending on what project that they bid on. We want to make sure that all of our entities are getting the best value, guarding against favoritism and extravagant spending, ensuring that the results of our procurement meets our agency needs, driving cost saving and protecting the interests of Cook County and its taxpayers. Because again, we are spending taxpayer dollars a lot of the time, and we want to make sure that we can account for maintaining best practices and getting the best value with those dollars with every procurement that we do. All right, so one of the big questions that we get when it comes to Office of the Chief Procurement Officer, as we call it, OCPO, and who we serve. So there are two major entities in Cook County that we do serve. The first major entities are offices under the president. So that includes all of the bureaus that you see listed here on your screen and the departments within them. So the Bureau of Asset Management, that includes the Chief Admin Officer, Animal Control, Emergency Management, the Law Library, Transportation and Highways, which you get a lot of projects for, Medical Examiner, and so on. The Bureau of Asset Management, the Bureau of Economic Development, Bureau of Finance, and all the other entities that you can see on this list. Another question that I often get is when we're bidding on opportunities for these bureaus, do we have to be versed in human resources or finance or technology in order to bid? And the answer to that is no. What we procure for these agencies are what's necessary for them to maintain their daily operations. So the procurements won't necessarily be what they're in the business of doing. So just because the Bureau of Finance posts a solicitation doesn't mean that it's going to be finance related. They may need consulting services. They may need pens and pencils, for example. They may need office equipment. It just depends on the need of the agency to maintain their operations. And if you guys need me to go over that in more detail, just let me know. But yeah, so these are the bureaus that we serve, everyone under the offices of the president. Next, we also serve all of the elected officials. So these will be the agencies that you guys vote for. So the Board of Commissioners, the Chief Judge, the Clerk, Public Administration, Public Guardian, the County Clerk, State's Attorney, Sheriffs. These are all elected offices. So everyone who is the head of those departments or those agencies were elected by Cook County constituents. So that's the difference between the bureaus and the elected offices. The bureaus are just there to maintain operations. The elected offices are the ones that you guys vote for, and they have a specific function in Cook County. But we serve all of the elected offices as well. So we do not support, and to Dr. Bowler's point in the beginning, we do not procure for the Forest Preserve. They have their own procurement authority and their own procurement system. The health and hospital system, so Stroger, Provident, hospitals like that. The Cook County Housing Authority, the Workforce Board, the Land Bank. We do not procure for the City of Chicago or any sister agencies or any of the other public agencies in the city or within the county or in Illinois. So if there are any questions about that, please let me know. On our website, which I will show you guys at the end of this presentation, we do have links to all of the sites of our sister agencies. So if they do have opportunities posted, you guys can still view them from OCPO's homepage. And I'll show you guys that further into the presentation. Okay. So why do business with Cook County? So the first reason is we are now the second most populous county in the nation, right? We used to be the third. I believe it was New York, then LA, then Cook County. We've now moved up to number 2. And OCPO alone invests over $1.3 billion each year in various goods and services. That's not including Forest Preserve, health and hospital systems, or any of our sister agencies. Our department alone, when we procure for the bureaus and elected offices, we procure over $1 billion worth of goods and services on average throughout each year. So the opportunities are there. And like I mentioned earlier, we procure anything from small office supplies to large building and road construction. We offer a wide range of resources focused on inclusivity, innovation, and economic growth. So we are in the business of trying to make sure that our vendors are able to get contracts and there's fair competition and it's open and transparent and everyone has the ability to bid on opportunities the same way. So we conduct our procurements in a competitive, open, and fair environment. Everyone has the same chance to bid on opportunities. So we try to maintain that throughout each type of procurement that we do. So the biggest reason why it's beneficial to do business with Cook County is because we are now a paperless organization, right? Pre-COVID, we were accepting manual proposals, manual bids, manual pricing, where you probably had to drop off boxes worth of proposals, hundreds of pages long to Cook County by a certain date and time. And we review all of those and make an award. So the only thing about the process that has changed is we do not accept paper bids or paper responses anymore. Everything that we do is now in Bonfire. And if you guys are not familiar with that system, I'll show you what that looks like. But it's an e-procurement system that allows us to work through our projects, post them to the public, and evaluate responses all in that one website. I'll go into Bonfire in more detail later, but the beautiful thing about Bonfire is it's not a county system. So you can access Bonfire wherever you have the internet, as long as you have the link, which I will post in the chat also. You can view all of our opportunities, all of the requirements for our opportunities, and download any information that you want as far as specifications is concerned for each of our opportunities wherever you have access to the internet. And if there are any questions about that, please let me know. So yeah, you guys are able to view all of the requirements, specifications. You can also send questions directly to the buyer associated with that project directly in Bonfire, and they'll respond via an addendum in Bonfire. We also encourage everyone, when I show you the website, you'll see what I mean, but when you are registering for your commodity codes, to select any and all commodity codes that correspond to your line of work, because that will broaden the notifications that you will receive, right? We post our solicitations based on commodity code type. We try to pick a few that fit the description of the service we're at or the goods we're asking for. So the more commodity codes you have associated with your profile in Bonfire, the better the chances you have of being notified of our opportunities. And I will also go on into what that looks like when we get to the live demo. Okay, so another incentive that we try to put out there to get vendors to do business with Cook County are our bid preferences and credits. And for those of you who are not familiar with what those are, if you haven't seen any of our bids before, they're small incentives that apply only to our IFBs, that only apply to our bids, where we give a small percentage of credit toward the bid price to assist you all in getting the award. So let's say on your screen, you should see, all of the boxes corresponding to the preferences that we offer. Let's say you guys apply for the local business preference, which is 5%, right? Let's say your bid came in at $100,000 and there's another bid right under yours that's $90,000, but you received that local business preference credit of 5%. So your actual bid price would be $95,000. Your contract amount will still be the 100 that you bid, but we decrease your award amount by 5% just to give you guys a more of a chance of winning that bid. So as long as your bid price with that incentive is not more than 10% higher than the lowest bid, you guys would receive that award. So in the example I gave, if your bid was $100,000 and there was another bid that was 97,000, I said 90, I meant 97,000. If you were to receive that local bid preference, your award amount would be 95,000. So you would beat the 97,000 bid, even though the apparent lowest was the 97,000. Are there any questions about that before I continue? Because I know that can be a little confusing. I don't see any hands or anything. Okay. If there are any questions, please let me know. The percentage that is applied to your bid does not go towards your contract amount. Your contract amount will still be that 100,000, but the award amount will be 95,000 to assist you guys in being the lowest responsive.
Sheena,
Yes.
Mr. Bell raised his hand. Mr. Bell, you can come off of mute.
Thank you. Hi, Sheena. I'm out of Joliet. Would I be considered a local business, or would that be Chicago only?
Oh, I believe it's Cook County. I don't think it's just Chicago. I believe it's Cook County in general, but I can double check that for you. It is, I want to say it's Cook County. I haven't looked at that in a while, but I believe everything that applies to our preferences are county related. Because we
Okay,
are a
thank you.
county agency. Yeah, no problem. And so there is a description of each of these preferences on our website, and I'll show you that when I get to the live demo. But if you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave it in the chat or just raise your hand, because I know that can be confusing with the bid preferences versus your actual contract amount. So just feel free to stop me if you need me to go over any of that again. So the next thing we're going to talk about is how Cook County procures. So we have what are called competitive solicitations and non-competitive solicitations, and they're exactly what they sound like. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the various types, I'll just go over them really quickly. Competitive solicitations are those that we post to the public to receive responses from any and anyone interested, right? So everyone has the opportunity to bid on these projects. It's open to everyone for at least 30 days. You can ask questions, attend the conferences to get information about the scope, but these are competitive solicitations are posted to the public for 30 days. So that's on our portal for everyone to see. And examples of our competitive solicitations are the IFB, or the invitation for bid, the request for proposal, or the RFP, and the request for qualifications. So the difference between these three is this here. So the invitation for bid is solely based on price. The award determination is solely based on price. We know exactly what we want down to the exact specifications. We are just asking vendors to give us their best price for that item. So let's say, for example, I want, office chairs. I want them to be black leather with swivel seats and wheels. and metal arms. That's exactly the specifications that we want. All we want the vendors to do is just tell us how much that would cost. There's no negotiating the specifications. There's no varying from that unless we specify that in the bid. But most of the times, the specifications are non-negotiable and we just want the price. That's what a bid is. The request for proposal is a lot more complex. So we use these types of procurements when the scope is more complex, it's lengthier, and it's more of a complex service. And so we know the end result that we have in mind, but we're relying on the vendor as a subject matter expert to map out how to get there, right? So we're allowing you guys to give us a roadmap. That's what the proposal is going to be, is you guys telling us how you're going to fulfill this contract for us, how you're going to perform to get us the outcome that we're looking for in that RFP. RFPs have an evaluation committee that reviews each proposal independently of the others, and they score each proposal. And the highest ranked ones are the ones who will either be shortlisted or receive a contract. So that's what a proposal is. You guys are giving us a roadmap for the service that we're asking for. The request for qualification is similar to an RFP, except pricing is not part of the consideration. What we're asking for with the request for qualification is more so like a resume. Why are you qualified to do this work? And we use RFQs to create a pool of vendors for a specific type of project. Let's say, for example, for transportation and highways, they do a lot of RFQs because we know over time there are going to be major roads and major highways that need repairing, for example. We may not know exactly when those repairs will take place, but we know we're going to need vendors on hand to make those repairs. So we'll create a pool of vendors for repair work for roads and highways. And then as that need arises, we'll pick down the pool and rotate until we get back to the top. So vendor A may receive Joel Orr Road repairs. Vendor B may receive Torrance Avenue repairs. Vendor C may receive Halsted Street, and so on and so forth until we get back to the top while that contract is ongoing. So that's what a request for qualification is. It's really just a resume to select a pool of vendors for a specific project. And those are examples of our competitive solicitations. Our non-competitive solicitations are ones that we call single source, where we go directly to a specific vendor for whatever reason, like the sole source, for example. We know there's only one vendor that can perform this service or provide these goods, and we're reaching out to them directly. And most of the time when we have a single source procurement, the user department has to justify to us why it's a sole source and why we're not going out for bid, because the board wants to know that, our constituents want to know why we're just awarding certain vendors without maintaining competition. So there is a justification form that is required for our single source items. As I mentioned, the sole source, there's only one vendor that can provide that good or service with a technical skill or specialized experience, warranty compatibility, computer equipment compatibility, and so on. And then you have what's called the reference agreement or the piggyback, which is where there's another sister agency. Let's say, for example, the city of Chicago did a procurement for debt collection services, and I'm just going to make that up. And they've allowed other agencies in the state to utilize that contract. So when we do a piggyback, we may piggyback off of the city's contract to get the same pricing and terms because the vendors have already been vetted. So that's what a piggyback is. We don't have to do our own solicitation because another major agency has already done one and allowed us to utilize the terms, pricing, and dates of that contract. And everything we do on our piggyback has to be within the parameters of the master agreement, which would be the lead agency's contract. And then we have consortium contracts. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with organizations like Omnia Partners or Sourcewell, where they do major solicitations for all agencies, private and public, and they select a pool of vendors, and we're able to piggyback or utilize the pricing on those contracts because the agency has done the work for us. And then obviously we have emergency purchases where we don't anticipate having to do this type of procurement, but something has happened where there's a threat to public safety or records, or we don't want to increase any damage to any of our facilities or buildings or infrastructure. So we have to do an emergency because we don't have the time to do a solicitation. And that requires a justification as well. Any questions about the difference between the types of solicitations that we do? Okay. I don't think I see any. Right, so next.
No, it looks like you're good for now. I don't think, let me look at the chat real quick. Kathy, I'm not sure what your question is. I think you may have asked it when she was on a certain slide. So if you're interested in asking that question openly, please go ahead and come off of mute right now.
I think Sheena kind of answered it. She mentioned Omnia, so it does sound like you use Omnia as a co-op agreement
Yes.
to purchase IT, yeah?
Yes, we use
Okay.
Omnia, we use Sourcewell. Yes, we do.
Sourcewell too, okay.
Mhm.
Not NASPO, Value Point.
We have before, but those are fewer than Omnia and Sourcewell. Those are the primary two that we use.
Got
But
it.
we have partnerships with most of the consortiums.
Understand. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And I think we have a hand up. Is it Lachey? I hope I'm saying your name correctly.
Yeah, you said it correctly. Thank you. I just have a question. How do you know when they do the sole sources? Or is it like, are you part of a directory, a vendor list? Like, how do they pick who is able to do the sole sources that you guys have available?
Yeah, so that's a good question. That's really up to the user department. They know the product or service that they need and who they're trying to contract with and why. They just have to justify that to us. If we find that it's not a sole source, we'll have them go back out and get other quotes for us. But it's really, sole sources are really driven by the user department's need. We just make sure that it is in fact a sole source before we actually put it out, or before we actually reach out to the vendor. Did that answer your question?
Halfway, yes, but I'm just saying, how do they figure out who they're going to use as the vendor for the sole source? Is there like a directory you guys go to, or do they just randomly pick someone, a company that they say they want to sole source to? I'm just trying to figure out, as a company, how would I be able to find a sole source contract if you're not part of a directory, or who is it that you talk to? How do you become that to be able to do it? That's all.
So I would say, and you can shoot me your information if you like, but it's more reaching out to the user departments to let them know that you are an option. We don't necessarily have a sole source pool because all of our sole sources are so different. The need varies throughout each type of sole source, so it's hard to come up with an actual list. But our user departments typically do their own market research. So they'll do Google searches or look around in some of our contracts to see what's out there and make a determination that way.
Okay, that helped me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Any other question about solicitation types? Okay. So next, this is just a snapshot of some of what we did in 2023 throughout the fiscal year. So you'll see the different type of competitive solicitations we did, the number of each of those solicitations and the aggregate value for each of those solicitations types. And then it shows items that were approved by the board versus approved by our CPO. The difference between the two is a dollar amount. The board has to approve anything that's $150,000 and over. Automatically goes to the board for approval. Anything below that threshold, our chief procurement officer can execute on his own. So that's the difference between board approved and CPO approved. It's really determined by the dollar amount. Below the competitive, you'll see the non-competitive, so the number of sole sources, the number of emergencies, and the number of piggybacks that we did, and the aggregate value for each of those. And then you will also see to the far right, our active contract summary list. And I think this was as of the beginning of January. So this is all FY23 information. So we have professional services, commodities, construction management, work services, and architecture and engineering. And really, really quickly, let me just explain the difference between professional services and work services the way OCPO sees it. So work services would be like laborers type of services, plumbers, movers, electricians, painters, things like that. That would all be considered work services where they're doing something, more laborious. Professional services is more skill or knowledge based. And I don't want to say like work services is not, but it's not a laborious thing, like consulting services, legal services, instruction services. Those are what we consider professional services. And then obviously commodities can range from anything from pens all the way up to buildings or cars or heavy equipment, construction management, and then architect and engineering, the design for construction. So we do all types of different categories in our purchasing. And this is just a snapshot of the active contracts that we had in FY23 in each of those categories. So as you can see, there are at least 4 or 5, maybe 500 or 600 different active contracts in our database for FY23, and that number grows each year. So the opportunities are out there. This was just so you guys can see the volume of work that we typically do in a fiscal year. Okay. So how to partner with Cook County?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me ask this one question before you move from that. Melissa asked, do you use TIPS as a co-op?
I have not heard of TIPS. I can look that up, but I'm going to say we have not. That doesn't mean that we don't. I just have not seen that co-op. So I can probably get information about that after the meeting to verify if we've done business with them. That doesn't mean that we don't. We just may have not had the opportunity to.
She said it's the interlocal purchasing system. It's a national co-op.
TIPS?
Yeah, she has it listed in here as capital TIPS.
Okay.
But so Melissa, at the end, Sheena will have her contact information in here, and you can reach out to her directly to get more information on that if that helps.
Is there any other questions? I will look into that. Just because I haven't heard of it doesn't mean that we've never done business or don't do business with them. We just may not have had the opportunity. Any other questions? Okay. So step 1 in partnering with Cook County, I mentioned the bonfire portal, but please make sure you register on the portal. Visit our bonfire portal and create a username and password. And remember to select all of the commodity codes that pertain to your line of work, as many as you can think of. And also codes that coincide with your line of work. So if you are a construction company, make sure that you are selecting also electrical, architect and engineering, things that could possibly get you notified about the opportunity that you are interested in. That's a good way to broaden your reach for being notified of our opportunities as they are open. And then once registration is complete, vendors will receive automatic notifications in Bonfire once an opportunity is posted with a commodity code that they have registered with. So again, I just want to point out, Bonfire is not a county system. There are multiple agencies, even in the city of Chicago, that use Bonfire, but you have to register in Bonfire with Cook County. Because again, we have a different procurement platform, a portal, and we use different commodity codes. So just make sure that you guys register with Cook County if you're already registered in Bonfire with another agency. That doesn't guarantee that you're going to receive notifications from us. I just want to specify that. Because I have gotten that question in the past, because I think Chicago Public Schools uses Bonfire, city colleges will not be using Bonfire. And I want to say health and hospitals is going to start using Bonfire too, but you won't be notified of a health and hospital opportunity on the county's Bonfire portal because they're all very different. Okay. The next thing that I recommend is viewing our awarded contracts and amendments on open data. This is a great resource for you all who have never done business with Cook County or have never seen our opportunities to know what our contracts look like. So we are required by code to post all of our contracts and amendments to the public, and I'll provide the link on where that information is. But it's useful to learn about the layout of our contracts, right? So each of our contracts is there in totality. The fully executed version along with any supporting documentation. So all the documents that our vendors are required to fill out to get approved for a contract are embedded within that contract document. So you can become real familiar with all of the requirements to do business with Cook County. It also shows the pricing for each of our contracts. There's a schedule of compensation or a bid table. So that's a good way to see what we've done historically Not to say like those exact things will be the same the next time it's put out, because we are required to repost solicitation or repost contracts every 5 years. That's not to say it'll be exactly the same, but at least you guys can have an idea of what the previous contract was for, how it was set up, and the documentation that was required for it. And I'll go through that website when I do the live demo. Any questions about the reasons for registering in Bonfire or viewing our amendments and contracts in open data? I don't think I see any.
We have one. Brian asks, is there a process for a company to bring an unsolicited professional services proposal to the attention of procurement services?
So, so that is the thing. That's a loaded question because we don't accept proposals that way. We accept actual proposals based on opportunities that we post. If you want to just give us information about products or services that you offer, we're happy to do a demo. We can get user departments involved that may need the service or goods that you're asking for, but that would be more of a demo than a proposal, just informational session. You guys can tell us what you offer. We won't discuss any of our needs or any of our requirements. We'll just listen to what you have to offer. That way we at least know that you're available when the need arises. But as far as submitting a proposal to Cook County, we don't accept proposals that way. We have to actually post a solicitation with an actual need for you guys to respond to. Does that answer the question?
It does answer my question, but my second question, my follow-up question would be then, what is the process to solicit a demo from the Department of Procurement Services or give a demo to the Department of Procurement Services so that they could see what other departments may want to use that particular service?
So you can reach out to us directly and just let us know that you want to do exactly that. I have
Okay.
something you might be interested in. I'm wondering if you guys would be interested in me demoing my service on my product. And then we'll put all the wheels in motion just to make sure that the right parties are involved in that call.
Okay.
So someone on procurement will have to be there. That's mandated, but we can also invite user departments that might also be interested in that need. So if you send us a description of like a summary of kind of what you're saying that you do, it doesn't have to be the whole presentation, but just I offer A, B, and C,
Mhm.
and I would like to demonstrate what I can do for you all. We'll get the ball rolling on that for you to help you with that.
And who would that go to you?
It can, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Are there any other questions about getting in contact with OCPO, just so we are aware that you are a vendor who does a certain service? Because I know we get that question a lot. How do I let you all know that I'm available to use? The best way to do that is via demos. And again, like I said, when it comes to single source procurements, like the sole source, for example, the user departments drive the vendor selection for that. When it comes to competitive solicitations, we kind of have more of a hand in that. So even if you have a proposal that meets a service that an agency may want, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go to you for a contract unless it's a sole source. If they're interested in the service, they still may put it out for the entire community to have the opportunity to bid on. It just depends on what the service is and the rules governing the need. So I don't want to make the promise that just because we get a demo, we're going to contract with you all. That's not the case. But we're happy to hear what's out there. We're always happy to know our options as an agency. Okay. I hope that answered your question. Okay. So next slide is going to talk more about how to review opportunities and ask questions, right? So like I said, in Bonfire, we have what's called the vendor portal. And that's the best way to get information in real time about procurements that are open, regardless of the type. All of our competitive solicitations will be available in Bonfire. We also post them on open data. You can't respond in open data. It's just a summary of what's out. You respond in Bonfire. And then we also post our competitive solicitations in the Tribune. So any of you guys who still receive the paper, all of our opportunities that are open will be posted as an ad in the Tribune. The next important thing is if you guys are confused about any of the specification requirements, any part of the scope of work, or any of the submittal documents required with each solicitation, attend those pre-bid and pre-proposal conferences. Those are really, really helpful because we don't just go over the main scope. We answer questions for vendors about the scope in detail. We answer questions about the submittal requirements in detail. Our compliance department is normally on those calls to answer questions about the goal requirements for each procurement. So it's really useful information when you guys are trying to get your foot in the door on how to do business with us and what's required to do business with us. We normally also post the presentation from those conferences as an addendum on that project. So even if you can't attend the conference, you'll still have information via an addendum, but it's really, really useful to attend those conferences, right? Because you can, like I said, you can review the contract specifications and the submittal requirements that are in Bonfire. Any questions regarding submittal requirements and documentation, we can answer right there on the spot. We may not be able to answer questions about scope requirements. That might be in the form of an addenda, but if you have a question about, does this document need to be signed? Is this document required? We can answer those on the spot. But like I said, it gives you guys a better understanding of what we're asking for even as far as specification and scope and the submittal requirements for that particular project. Any questions about any of that before I move on? Okay. So we have a couple of tips about some of those submittal requirements, right? First, I want to point out that the submittal requirements for each of our solicitations can be different. Some things that are required for a bid may not be required for an RFP and vice versa. So make sure you review the document in entirety for each procurement that you're reviewing. And I know that should go without saying, but I have had a vendor tell me before, well, I've submitted a bid before, so I didn't think I need to read the whole document for an RFP. Those document setups are very different. What we're asking for in each is very different. And they contain a lot more, the RFP document contains a lot more information as far as the evaluation is concerned, which is part of the requirement for an RFP. So don't just skip to the scope or the pricing. Make sure you review the document in its entirety and look at all the exhibits and attachments associated with each type of procurement, because like I said, they are different depending on the solicitation type, right? For an RFP, like I just mentioned, a lot of times vendors skip straight to the scope and skip straight to the pricing just to make sure that they can submit. But that background information, the objective and outcome of that bid, the goal of that RFP is just as important as the scope that we're asking for, because it paints the entire picture for you all. So, you know, the background information, if you know where you're coming from, you can have a better idea of where you're going kind of thing. So the background kind of gives you guys information on how the need arose, why it's crucial, how we got to the point where we are right now, so that you guys can better help us with a solution for the problem. So just reviewing the scope may not be enough. And I do want to point that out. And I hate that it sounds like I'm being remedial, but I have had vendors tell me, I don't look at the background, I just go straight to the scope. The background, the objective, and the goal is equally as important as the scope itself. And like I mentioned with an IFB, there are certain special conditions and sample documents that are in those, in that solicitation that are important to coincide with that scope. So make sure you review those documents in its entirety also. And then all of the attachments and exhibits. I know some of those solicitations can be really, really lengthy, but everything in that solicitation document is important. There's a reason why it's there, right? And especially with the IFB, all of those preference credit documents are all housed at the end of the IFB, and it's about 8 or 9 separate documents with cover pages. Some of them are multiple pages long. But if you want to apply for any of those credits, you have to go scroll through the whole document to find them, right? And like I said, be mindful of any of the additional exhibits that are attached, because they are going to give you supplemental information about the scope and the requirements. Okay. So some of the documents that we do require in general for most of our procurements are going to be the identification of subcontractors form. So this is for the prime to identify any subcontractors that they're going to be using on the contract, what they're going to do, and how much their contract amount is going to be. And that can be an estimate, like a percentage of the contract value or something like that. It may not be, you may not know the exact number just yet. But we require one of those for each sub that you're using. The bid preference documents that I mentioned that applies to IFBs only. The MBE and WBE utilization plan, which is also housed in each of our documents. There are 3 separate forms that you could possibly fill out depending on what you're applying for, but those are required for each submission, regardless of the solicitation type. A certificate of insurance and the requirements for this, the requirements for The certificate of insurance for each solicitation can be different, so pay close attention to each solicitation document that you review. The proposed pricing or the bid table, depending on the type of procurement, and then the economic disclosure statement. I don't know if any of you guys have had to submit any of the economic disclosure statement for us, but it is a very complicated document. So that's why I say attend those previous conferences and ask questions, because you will have questions filling that document out. It never fails. No one is an expert at filling a document out, especially the first couple of times, but we're here to help. And that's why I say ask questions as you need to. Because I'd rather you ask questions and fill it out correctly than try to do it on your own and fill it out wrong and maybe deem yourself non-responsive. Right, but that economic disclosure statement, that has the vendor signature page on it, so failure to submit that correctly will deem your contract non-responsive. And there may be additional documents depending on the solicitation type, but at a minimum, these are the primary things that I require, and I will kind of go through a couple of these when I do the live demo. Okay. All right, so now let me get into the live demo. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Hold on a second. How do I stop? There we go. Okay, so bear with me. I'm going to pull up the next thing we're going to review. Okay.
While Sheena is working on that, I just want you all to know that I did drop her email address in the chat, and I'll definitely make sure to drop it again towards the end so that it's not lost. But if you see it in there, you can go ahead and make a note of that for your own communication.
Thanks, Dr. Butler.
You're welcome.
So the first thing I'm going to go over is the OCPO homepage. So the easiest way to get here is just to go to cookcountyil.gov. And when you do that, it'll take you to our main homepage, and it looks like this. This is the regular Cook County IL home. Can you guys see my screen? I'm sorry. You can? Okay. And then you want to click on agencies, Office of the Chief Procurement Officer. And this is the page that I first displayed. Right, so it has our mission statement, values, some resources for vendors, our office hours. Two of the important links on the side are our current contract opportunities. So this link here will take you directly to Bonfire. I won't click on it because I'm going to go there in a second, but if you were to click on it, it should take you, there it is, directly to Bonfire, which is our vendor portal. And this is in real time, so this is our live site. The other thing I want to show you is procurement data and information. So this is the site. It has a lot of information on what we do and how we do it, but it also houses the link to our awarded contracts and amendments. So the open data portal that I was telling you about that houses all of the contracts that we have executed, contracts and amendments. And this is what this looks like. You can filter by vendor name, you can filter by the description, you can filter by the department. You can export this entire list to your computer if you want to. It's an interactive site, so you can filter it and make it do whatever you need to do, depending on what you're searching for. But over here on the right under category, it'll show you whether it's a new contract or an amendment. And even if it says a new contract, the contract might still be valid from 2020. If it hasn't expired yet and we're not in a renewal term, it'll still say new contract, even if it's a couple years old. And then the amendment supporting that contract. So this is a good way for you all to kind of get your foot in the door and just see how our contracts are set up. I'm going to go ahead and click on this first one just so you guys can see what our contracts actually look like. So this was a bid that was posted to the public for gas ovens. And this is the bids in our solicitation, bids actually become the contract. That's the only one of our solicitations where that's the case. So that's why it looks the way that it does, where you say the pre-bid conference and site inspection information and things like that, because this document actually becomes a contract. But you'll see the contract number, the purchase order number, what the contract is for, and the agency using the contract. You can see what exhibits are associated with this contract, and here are all of those preferences that I was telling you guys about, housed in the contract. I'm just going to scroll really quickly. So the first part is instructions to bidders. So you'll have definitions of all of the items in our contract, and then how to prepare your actual bid. So this gives you guys an idea or information on what we're looking for as far as submission is required. So bear with me, this document is pretty lengthy. I'm gonna scroll really quickly to the important section, our general terms and conditions for you guys to read through. The insurance requirements for this contract are housed here, and they're different for each type of scope depending on what we're asking for. The overall MBE goals that we try to achieve as an agency, but the goals for this contract might be slightly different depending on the need. I don't want to make you all dizzy, but I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to the important stuff. Well, the meat and potatoes. So here's what I was referring to as the special conditions when I mentioned that earlier. So this is supplemental information to what we're asking for in general. You'll get a snapshot of the scope, the contract period, how this contract will be awarded, the actual MBE requirements for this contract, which was 0 because of the need of this contract, when questions from bidders are due, and the link to provide those questions. Right, this one had an actual site visit, so it gives you information on when that site visit is and where. And then information on once the contract is awarded, where things should be delivered, our hours of operation, who to contact for questions and things like that. Warranty information, the bidder acknowledgement section is here. So this is a useful section. This is like supplemental, the precursor to the actual scope of work. And then here are the actual specifications. So here is what, not they all don't look exactly the same, but this is the layout of what the bid would look like. Right, so this is the specifications for this oven. They gave a picture of it, so you guys can see kind of what it looked like. I think they accepted equivalents in this bid. There's a site inspection certificate, so if the site inspection is required, vendors are required to fill this out. And then OCPL provides instructions on how to submit bids, links in case you guys have questions. Here is that identification of subcontractors form I was talking about, where you guys have to identify all the subs that you're using. This is what that form looks like. So apparently, this vendor didn't have any subs. They were self-performing, but if they did that, the sub information will be indicated here. Right, so you have to have the bid number, the date of this document, the amount of the bid that you're proposing, the contract information and contact information here at the bottom, and then this form has to be signed by the prime. This is just information about if you guys want to set up electronic payables or receive checks. That's all this is, and that's in every bid also. And here's where the preferences begin. So here's the veteran business enterprise preference, and this is what these documents look like. Right, so I do want to mention that you can get a certain percentage off of your bid price in consideration for award if you are approved for any of these preferences. They're not cumulative. You can only be approved for one, no matter how many you apply for. But this is where you would do that. They're embedded in each of our in each of our bids, because that's all the preferences apply to. And it gives you an outline of what the definition of what they're referring to and why, and then sign and notarize at the bottom. And most of them are that way. They give you a snapshot of what we're asking for, which preference you're proposing, and then sign and notarize at the bottom. Okay. So there are a few more of these. I'll scroll through really quickly. They all look very similar. If this project was, if the contract amount, the awarded contract amount was above 150,000, like I mentioned, this would have had to go to the board, but because this one wasn't, it didn't require board approval. But here are the compliance documents, the utilization plan that I was referring to earlier. So once you guys submit your utilization plan, compliance does review those for us, and they provide us a letter like this saying, hey, this vendor has met the requirements for this contract, or this contract doesn't have requirements, so there's no need, but they'll let us know that they approve us contracting with you all based on the utilization plan that you provided. The certificate of insurance will be inserted here based on the requirements of that solicitation. If there were any addenda that was posted, we make sure that the vendor acknowledges those addenda and signed off on it. And that's important because if there's a crucial change to the scope, we will notify you all in the form of an addendum. And so if you guys submit a response and it's non-responsive because it doesn't coincide with an updated scope, and you didn't submit this document, that could hurt you all because it shows that you didn't review the addenda. So we want to make sure that all the information that we give you all in those addenda, you guys are saying that you actually read and understand. And then here's what we call the bid page. So this is going to be vendor pricing. There was only one line on this particular solicitation. If there were more, you see them out here, but all we asked for was the price for their 2 ovens. So this is what the bid page will look like. It could have from 1 all the way up to 100 lines, depending on the bid itself. And then here's the economic disclosure statement I was showing you all, or I was telling you all about, right? So I think it's like 15 pages total, but each of these sections is within this document and they are all important. And if they are not filled out correctly, and we have to reach back out, after a certain amount of times, we may go on to the next lowest bidder. So make sure you guys understand what we're asking for in this document. We try to give instructions and definitions in the beginning, letting you all know the certifications that we're requiring or what we're referring to. We require you guys to notify us if you are part of any lobbying or disclose any lobbyist contracts that you have. Here is where you would apply for that local business preference, right? And yes, to answer the question earlier, full-time workforce within Cook County. So it is Cook County, not just Chicago. But this is where you would apply for that. We're asking if you are defined as a local business, and we ask for the address of that business, and we do verify that if we see this, right? Ownership interest statement. This document is really important. You have to disclose any company that has more than a certain percentage of substantial ownership in the company trying to contract with Cook County. So all of that has to be noted here. So this document is pretty lengthy. It does have a lot of sections that are pretty complex. So please, please, please ask questions if you're unsure of what to put. I'd rather you guys ask questions than fill it out incorrectly. This form is just stating that you don't have any familiar relationships with Cook County, any commissioners or any stakeholders within Cook County. And if you do, you have to notify us of who that is. Any board, commissioner, or employee, if they're family or have a familiar relationship. And then that has to be signed. The wage theft affidavit, so just letting us know that you guys intend to pay your employees what you're supposed to. And that has to be signed. For each substantial owner of the company. That's why you see multiple versions here. And then this is the vendor execution page, right? So a lot of times we get questions about our professional service agreements. Where do I sign on that document? So on the PSA, that document also has the economic disclosure statement embedded in it. This will always be the vendor signature page. So anytime you guys are looking at our sample contracts and you don't see the vendor signature right next to Cook County signature, this is why. This is you guys attesting to that I'm bound to whatever I submitted in this contract. And when we approve, this is the county signature page. So everyone on the county side will sign this version of the document. If the contract is over $1 million, it'll have the state's attorney's signature. If it's over $150, it'll have the board stamp of approval along with the contract term and amount. But this is the county signature page. This is the vendor signature page, which is why the EDS is important, because if you do not sign this document, you're automatically non-responsive. Okay. Any questions about this contract document that I just went over? Any sections on this document? And again, the RFP document looks very different, but some of the supplemental attachments are the same. I see a hand from Anisha.
Yes, I have a question. I've submitted proposals in the past, and I know there's a lot of pages that have to be notarized. And in the past, I've used online notaries, but they're licensed. Most of them are licensed in different states. They just pop up. But I noticed on this contract, the notary was Illinois. Does it matter? If the notary, do they have to be licensed in Illinois?
No, they don't have to be licensed in Illinois. The notary just has to be valid when the contract was signed. I've seen notaries from other states that are on our actual contract. This one just happens to be Illinois.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
So there was a question. Let me see if I can go back. Melissa is funny. She said, that's a lot of notarized forms. Is there a reason for all of those forms being notarized versus just signatory acknowledgement?
Yes. So the reason for that is, I'll answer that in two parts. Part one, the reason for that is because each part of this form goes to a different department, right? So our familiar relationship form, for example, where you guys are disclosing that you don't have any relationships with Cook County constituents or employees, Cook County employees or commissioners, the Board of Ethics reviews this document and they let us know whether or not it's approved or if what you're saying is accurate. And then we have other agencies that review, like, for example, the wage step affidavit. So this isn't solely a procurement form. So when you guys submit this to us, if it has a separate notary, that's because that document has to be reviewed by someone other than OCPO. And then they give us the approval back before we can move forward with awarding a contract. The second piece, did that answer your question? I'm sorry. I hope I did. The second part to that is, we know that there are a lot of notaries on this document and we're currently in the process of trying to streamline that. I think we're trying to find a way to accept just the, like the Adobe timestamp signature in lieu of a notary. That's not formal yet, but we are working on that because we know how cumbersome it can be to get notaries for each of these documents separately. So, but again, because some of these documents are not procurement documents, we have to get that approved by the department who has to approve that document. I hope that answered the question.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and jump to bonfire, my favorite part of the presentation. Any questions or comments about anything I've covered so far? Okay. So like I said, I missed something. I'm so sorry. Let me go back to our homepage. I want to show you guys
Stephanie?
something else.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. And this is just out of an interest where a business would have an opportunity to do business dual state. Is that a requirement, or is that allowable for any of the opportunities for Cook County?
I'm sorry, can you ask that one more time? I don't think I understood.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I have a business that has dual citizen, well, not citizenship. We do business in other states. Would I be able to take advantage of the opportunities for Cook County if I'm doing business in another state as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Doing
All right.
business in other states doesn't preclude you from doing business with Cook County. Absolutely. Anyone is welcome to bid on opportunities with us.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we don't restrict that way. The only thing I could say is there may be some complex RFPs where they may ask that you have a local office so that you can be more easily accessible depending on the scope of that contract. But
And we
that's
do.
not a requirement for everything. So yeah, it just depends on the contract, but anyone can bid on opportunities.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
That answers my question.
No problem. Okay. So I went back to the homepage for a minute because I forgot to mention something, but if you guys are on our main page and you click on doing business with Cook County, a lot of what I just covered is here, but I wanted to show you guys the preferences and credits. So these are the descriptions of each of those credits that I was telling you about, right? So I gave you guys the list and the percentage, but this is what we're looking for those credits. So this is how you know if you qualify. So make sure the link here is the doing business with Cook County link on our homepage. This is really useful information also. And then there are more links to the vendor portal. There are more links to open data and other information that I kind of shared in this presentation. And then again, ethics requirements, because part of that EDS, our ethics department does review. So if you guys want information about what they're looking for, what they're approving, the link to their site is here. We also have a link to contract compliance because we get asked a lot of compliance questions, and maybe this can streamline some of that for you all, but user information on this page also. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything.
And that page, the link for this page was just dropped in the chat, you all.
Okay. Here's another snapshot of some of the procurements we've done at a glance. So this is a little more detailed than what I showed you guys in the PowerPoint. Just a few more items here. And we try to post those on a quarterly basis. And then let's see, I want to make sure I did not miss anything. Oh, so under procurement data information, our annual buying plan is posted here. So this is where at the beginning of the fiscal year, or at the end of the current fiscal year, we let you know what we anticipate purchasing the next fiscal year. So you can filter this. I don't know why this says FY18. I'm so sorry. Let me go back. It's supposed to have a list of all of them. My apologies. Let me find it. Nope, that's wrong. I meant to click here. There we go. The annual buying plans is in the wrong place. But here is the buying plan for FY24. So this is everything that our user departments have let us know that they anticipate purchasing this year. So this is a good way to see what's coming down the pipeline ahead of time, right? So we let you know what quarter we anticipate advertising these items. Obviously, the first quarter has already pretty much passed, but second and third and fourth quarter, you guys can see what's coming down the pipeline that we have already anticipated, so you know what to be on the lookout for. And there's a whole list here of all the purchases that we intend to make, the major new contracts that we intend to implement in FY24 so far. I wanted to point that out for you all. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, here is the link for our sister agencies. I apologize if I'm all over the place. I just want to make sure I get you guys all the information I can. So the link to the Forest Preserve, Health and Hospital System. So these are all of their websites. If you guys are interested to know, and if you guys are interested in knowing what they're bidding on or what solicitations they have open to the public, you guys can click on any of these links. And I believe that's it. Okay. I cover pretty much everything else. All right, so now I'll get to Bonfire because I think we're gonna only have 20 minutes left. So this is a live site in Bonfire. And like I said, you can access Bonfire wherever you have access to the internet. This is the main opportunities page. So this is everything that is open to the public right now, all of our competitive solicitations. So you'll see the contract number or the reference number, a small description of the project that we're asking for, the department requesting the services, the end date for that procurement. So when this project closes, as you can see, this one here closes tomorrow, and so on. And then if you click this button all the way to the right where it says view opportunity, it'll take you to a summary of that exact opportunity. Now, before I continue, I do want to point out, this is just a summary. If you guys want to see the specific scope or the specific bid tables or specific pricing sheet, you have to scroll to the bottom of this page and hit start submission. And I don't think Bonfire will let you get to that point unless you register. But once you registered and you're on the opportunities page, this is what you'll see. You'll see details about the procurement, key due dates, when questions are due, when it closes, how much time you have left. You'll see that in a list here as well. The supporting documents that are required for this solicitation. So all of the addenda associated with it, the compliance form, that ISF form, and the EDS that we were talking about, these are housed on all of our solicitations. So all you have to do is click the download button and you have it. So the supporting documentation is different from what's required to be submitted. These are housed here for your references. For example, you don't have to submit the actual addenda. You just have to submit the addenda acknowledgement form that's in the bid. But these are here for you to see. What's required for you to submit is all here. Wherever you see this green required button, you have to put something in that slot to complete your submission or you will not let you move forward. So this one is set up where you can have the pricing sheet separate and then you can compile one document that is your response to the bid. Some of our buyers itemize the documents that they want, especially for RFPs, where the qualification section, the methodology is different, past experience is different. Those all may be a different required document, but it just depends on how the buyer has set it up. The document takers section lets you know all the companies that have looked at this opportunity, the number of files that they open, and if they are certified and the agency that has certified them. This is useful for primes who are looking for subs to meet their MBE goals, or if you want to put in your profile when you set up that you are certified in any of these areas and you look at this opportunity, it'll let everyone know here. And we do have a lot of primes that look at this list to try to find vendors to meet their MBE goals. So this is a useful tool also. And it lets you actually view that vendor profile if you click the view button. But this is a really useful section. Right, so at the bottom down here is where the buyer will post the addenda information. So if there was any addenda attached or any questions being answered, they would do that down here at the bottom. The vendor discussion section is where you would ask the buyer questions. And it will populate over here like an email thread, so you all can see all the questions. Well, at least the buyer can see all the questions that have been asked. All the questions that you asked will be housed over here. Since I have buyer access, I can see what everyone asks, but this is how you would start asking a question to the buyer. The same way you would send an email, is send it directly to the buyer in Bonfire. Right? And so like I was saying, for this particular opportunity, I'm already set up as a test vendor. You would have to hit start submission at the bottom of the screen. I already started one, so it has me in here as a test, but if you wanted to, let me just show you what this would look like really quickly. Once you hit start submission, this is the screen that it'll take you to. So this is where you can actually upload your files, where you can actually populate your bid table. And for most of our bids, we allow you guys to populate the bid table directly in the browser, which is a great thing. So there's no more separate Excel documents that everyone has to submit. The buyer will get all of this information in real time. You just put your line item pricing in, the system will automatically calculate the total cost for you. That way you don't have to worry about any miscalculations, and then just hit the submit button and you're done. And that's for most of our solicitations, unless it's a more complex pricing sheet. We may do the Excel document. Those are few and far between. But that's the beauty of Bonfire. Once you actually submit this bid table, you can go back and download what you submitted after the fact. I don't know why they don't allow that ahead of time, but you actually have to submit it in order to download the entire bid table that you recently submitted. But this is one of the things we get the most compliments about, being able to submit pricing directly in the browser and keep going. And once you do that, you confirm your bid table, upload all of your files, check the I understand I can't change my submission details, and hit finalize. I'm not going to do that because this is our live site. But once you hit finalize, it goes directly to the buyer. Again, they can't see what the submission is until the closing date, but they'll see that you tried to submit something. And again, I do want to point out, you are able to make changes to your submission up until the due date and time of that bid. But when you do, just make sure you go back and resubmit. Because once you start making changes, it pulls your project back into draft state, and the buyer cannot see it if it's in draft state. So even if you previously submitted and you go back and add a document, let's say you forgot the certificate of insurance and you want to put that in your bid, you can do that, but you have to resubmit your bid. I just want to make sure that I point that out. But this is what an actual submission page looks like. And again, the required documents could be longer depending on the scope or the project. Any questions about that? Let me see if I can click on another one so you all can see one that's more set up like an RFP. Let's look at this one. Okay, this looks more like an RFP. So, oh, there are a lot of files associated with this one. So this one is a more complex one, as you can see. And you see how this one has more requirements with the technical proposal. Remember I was saying some buyers itemize what they want to see from you all just to make sure that they have it covered. This is what that would look like. So if I was to click start submission all the way at the bottom, and I have that option now because I didn't prepare one for this one already, I can hit start submission. It's going to be under my fake test name. And here's where you can upload all the files corresponding to the document that they're asking you for. Right. And this, I know this seems cumbersome, but this helps you all not miss a document either, because sometimes when we have one 400-page document that we've compiled and scanned together, things get missed. And we've had to reach out to vendors for corrections all the time for a longer solicitation. So this kind of aids in making sure that everything we're asking for, you guys are actually submitting. And then it works the same. You just hit I understand I can't change and finalize my submission. So let me just go back to the portal so you guys can see that again. And I want to get the actual RFP document so you guys can see the difference in what they look like. So give me 1 second while I find it. Here we go. Let me open that. There we go. Okay. So the first contract that I showed you was an actual IFB. So now I'm going to go through an RFP, which is our most complex type of solicitation. So this might be a little lengthy, but just so you guys can get an idea of what they look like and how they're formulated. So as you can see, they are set up a little different. The table of contents is much lengthier because it has a lot more sections in it. But it's really detailed in what you're looking for and what page that it's on. So if you already read the document, you can scroll right through. But here's the section I was telling you about the overview and the background of the project. This is really, really important because they're letting you know how the need arose and why there is a problem that needs to be addressed via this contract. The purpose of the RFP, the vision of this project, all of that is really important, right? Key information that is very, very useful before it dives into the actual scope. Okay. I don't know if I want to go through this entire document. Let me scroll to the evaluation criteria section because this is all scope related. Okay. And these are all requirements, things that they're asking the vendor to do, milestones and deliverables and so on for an RFP, which is really, really common. So let me just get to the end. 1 second. Don't want to make you all dizzy. Okay. So towards the end or the middle, second half of this document, you'll have more key information about when things are due. Sometimes we have an anticipated award date or the anticipated board date here if a board approval is required. There are more instructions to vendors here, more links for you all if you need them, like the link to the pre-proposal conference is here, where you can find documents related to this RFP other than Bonfire if you need to, when questions are due. And then we also give information on how to submit the documents that we are asking you all for, right? So the submittal requirements section is going to give you that information. So evaluation and selection, this is telling you how we're going to review the proposals, what we're basing our decision on when it comes to award. All of that information is here. The evaluation criteria, so this is like your grading rubric or your syllabus, right? This is us telling you, this is what we're looking for and how we're going to score you. So to make sure that you incorporate these things that we're looking for into your bid or into your proposal, I'm sorry. If we have orals, what the weight of the orals will be, what the weight of the best and final offer will be, right? And then here is the submittal requirements section, right? So each of these documents, we're giving you a guideline of what we're looking for in that document. So here's what the cover letter should impose. Here's what the executive summary should have, all the way down to the qualifications, how you should set that up. So we're giving you instructions on how we want to see what we need to see, if that makes any sense. So this is another key area. So this is why I say skipping straight to the scope and going with that only is not it. The rest of the document is just as important as the scope of the proposal that you're going to create, right? And then information on the pricing form. I believe this one was an Excel document because it wasn't in Bonfire as a bid table. And then on to the other supplemental documents as well. So these are placeholders, but once we have these documents approved, they'll be embedded in the final contract document. And each of these exhibits are listed on the portal. So these are these documents here that you can reference and download and fill out. Okay. Any other questions about Bonfire, navigating Bonfire? And I know once I send you guys the link and you start registering, you may have additional questions about how to set up your profile. And I'm here to answer those for you if you need to, but any questions about what I've covered so far? Anything you need me to discuss that I haven't so far? Okay, I don't think I see. Okay. Okay, well, if there aren't any other questions, that is all I have for today. Again, please take advantage of all of those links that we're going to provide you, the Bonfire link, the awarded contracts and amendments. They're all really, really helpful. Take a look at our portal. Make sure you guys register with all of those commodity codes so that you can be notified of more opportunities, as many opportunities as possible. And if you guys do have any additional questions after this meeting, Dr. Bola has put my email in the chat. Feel free to just reach out. I'm here to help whenever you need. But I'll open the floor for questions if you guys have any.
So Shelley asked a question in the chat. Can you please explain how to pick codes?
I apologize. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry. So our commodity codes, we use the UNSPSC commodity codes. And let me just go to that website. UNSPSC.org. So this is the homepage for all the commodity codes that we use to categorize our purchases. If you know the code in general, you can search for it here, or you can search for the code name. So I'm just gonna go ahead and type consulting. Oops, can't type today. For example, and hit search. What this is gonna do is bring up all of the codes associated with something consultant related. So when you get in Bonfire, you know at least you need to be in the 80 header. And you can drill all the way down to as many of these as you want or as you need to. But this is how you would find the codes associated with the commodity codes that we use. This is how you would find those descriptions. UNSPSC.org, and I will put that in the chat. Let me do that. I'll do that right before we end the meeting because I don't want to get away from this screen. And let me try something else, paper, for example. There are probably a few hundred codes associated with paper, but you can click on any and as many as you need to make sure you get as many notices as you can. And again, there are pages and pages of paper-related products or paper-related codes here. So that was just a small example, but this is how you would know which codes to use for Cook County. And because I do think the other agencies are different. Any other questions?
Shelley, go ahead and come off of mute.
Okay, so then you would have to write down each one of those codes, and then when you're in Bonfire, you would enter in that specific code number?
So you can actually search the same way in Bonfire. I just wanted to show you guys where we get our codes from. So in Bonfire, if you typed in paper, it'll bring up this exact same list.
Oh, got it. Okay, thank you.
It'll bring up this exact same list. So you can either, if you know that consulting, for example, the umbrella code for that starts with 80, you can type 80 and enter, and it'll bring up everything under that code, itemized under that code. So you can select anything that applies to you, or just type the code name itself, and it'll bring up everything related to that code. So no, you don't have to go back and forth and copy and paste. Since our Bonfire system uses UNSPC codes, that list will populate just the same.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for like legal, but I would search under professional services or legal.
Let's see. I think you can do legal. You can do either or, but I think legal is a code that has, let me check and see. Yeah, so you can do, legal is one that you can search for.
Oh, okay.
Legal
Thank you.
services,
Thank you
legal
very
research.
much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great presentation.
Oh, thank you. Any other questions, comments, or something I didn't cover that you guys were looking for? We're always looking for ways to make this more useful for you all. So please, 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 any and all feedback that you guys have, I do welcome that. We do welcome suggestions for the next time.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, I'm sorry I joined a little late,
No problem.
but I definitely needed all of this information. So I literally just got on like not even 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
And what you were saying at the end, I need, so first you said you put your email in the chat. I didn't see it.
Hi, welcome, Ms. Green. So
Hi.
what we're gonna do, I did put her email in there. I'll put it in there, or Sheena can put it in there now. It's up further, but we'll put it in there now so that you don't have to like scroll through it.
Okay.
I'm also gonna send a copy of the chat notes, so you'll be able to see. You'll also get a link to our YouTube page or our YouTube channel that'll have the recording to this presentation. So you'll be able to go back and look through it all in total.
Okay. And I just had one more question. So I don't know what you covered. Like I said, I joined late. So I have a Bonfire. I've been in there, but it only sends me stuff from like Jefferson County and nowhere near where I am.
Okay. So the key to that is if you want to, because there are several agencies that use Bonfire. That was one of the things I mentioned earlier. If you want to receive notifications for Cook County specifically, you have to register in Bonfire with Cook County. because Bonfire is not a county agency. Several agencies, even within the city of Chicago, use Bonfire. So if you want our notices, you have to register on our portal and select our commodity codes.
Okay, and that is the UNSPSC?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so on there to give me a detail on how to apply for Cook County and everything.
Yes.
Okay. Yes,
I'll
I
just
need
go
that.
over it one more. Yeah, I'll just click back again. You might have missed this section, but I went over the vendor portal.
Mhm.
So once you register and select all of the commodity codes that apply to your area of work, make sure you select as many as you can. This is the actual vendor portal, and I'll put the link to this in the chat as well as the other links that I mentioned earlier. This is where
Okay.
you can view all the opportunities that are currently on the street for Cook County. So this does not include sister agencies. This does not include any agency we do not specifically procure for. This is just Cook County. And again, there's other agencies in the city who use Bonfire, but you won't see our opportunities on their Bonfire portal because they have a separate system. Okay.
Oh, this is so complicated. Not
And
complicated, but it's so much information.
I just dropped the link to the Bonfire for Cook County in the chat.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Okay.
And we're here to answer
Ms. Green,
questions.
when you do take a look at the presentation and you have any questions, you can definitely connect with Sheena by email and ask your questions so that it doesn't seem like it seems like it's so complicated and arduous right now because you're coming in on the back end. But I think once you look at the presentation, you'll get a much better understanding of everything, and then it'll make sense for you to ask questions. Once you have that, you can ask them directly to Sheena via email. So Sheena, did you put your email in the chat?
I did not yet. Let me.
Okay. I want to make sure that we have that in there for those individuals who need that. Looking through the chat.
Okay.
I'm sure I typed that right. There we go.
Okay, there you go. Okay. All right, cool.
And I'll go ahead and add, let me stop sharing. Do you guys have anything else related to Bonfire, anything I covered? I'm going to stop sharing and add the rest of the links in the chat, unless you guys have any other comments, questions. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing if I can make sure that I get all of these in the chat. So I'm giving the link to procurement in general. Here is the OCPO page. Here is the UNSPC page.
Mr. Bell, you can come off of mute.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry, there's a lot of certifications. If you're a small business, I'm a veteran minority. What should I start with City of Chicago and then go Cook County, or go Cook County first and then City of Chicago for reciprocity?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, when I answered your question in there, I thought you were saying that you were already certified. So here's the thing with certification. The city of Chicago and Cook County have a relationship of reciprocity. So you can choose to go with whomever you desire. Like some people will choose to go with Cook County. Obviously, I'm going to be a proponent for Cook County because I represent that office. Or you can choose the city of Chicago to get certified, but you don't have to get certified through the both of us. The state has the different, you may be already certified through the state of Illinois. That's a different procurement process and a different certification process. And then, like, say if you get certified federally, which I know you already do a lot of federal work. So it's just an issue of Cook County versus the city of Chicago. And if I was an unbiased person, I would basically tell you that it really didn't matter where you went because you would be able to be exposed to both opportunities once you are certified. But of course here, because we're constantly focusing on an initiative to increase our vendor pool, specifically our veteran vendor pool. So we do have the Veteran Business Enterprise and SDBBE certification here at Cook County. that you can add to your certifications here as well, as does the City of Chicago. So since I am a proponent for that and I'm here representing that, I would say for you to connect with us about getting certified through the city, and then you'll be able to have that connection with, I'm sorry, through the county, and then you'll be able to have that connection with the city once you're certified.
Thank you, Makiba. And then what's the
Welcome.
standard like timeline, assuming that all my documents are compliant with what you're looking for? How long
I'm
is it
glad
going to
you said that. I'm glad you added that back part on there. Assuming that everything is right, assuming that all of your submission is in alignment with what the checklist says and what because you do your application in through B2G, which is our software internally. Assuming that all of that is in place, we always put out there between 60 and 90 days, leaning more towards 90 days if there's anything that we need to get further elaboration on, or 60 days. We do have, like everybody else, a shortage. Our certification officers, our team is working with 3 certification officers right now. So depending on how your application looks and if everything is good, I don't suspect it would go longer than 90 days. That's the internal aspirational goal for us to get through. If you do have any questions though, you can always send me an email and I can forward you, kind of filter you to the certification deputy or the certification team to get any of those questions answered. And I know there was another question in there about certification. So we do have, I think I dropped the link in there in response to somebody's question about I just dropped the link in there for the OCC page. And then if you go down to the bottom, there's some little icons that'll let you know this is where you go to certify. But then I also dropped a link in there for our YouTube channel because there is, I think one of the first trainings or webinars that I did with the deputy of certification, and she kind of went into full detail about the certification process. So if anyone wants to take a look at that, it may also answer some questions that you have as it relates to certification. Any other questions from anyone? Sheena dropped a boatload of links in here. That's why everybody's going to get a copy of the chat so that you'll have access to all of that good information. Once again, as we're closing out, I will be sending a follow-up email this afternoon by the end of the day. And that email is going to include the replay link, the notes to the chat. It will also, I believe Sheena does share the slide deck. So the slide deck is going to be sent to you all as well. And then I'm going to have about 3 links in there for some upcoming trainings that we have, doing business with Cook County Health and Hospitals. That's going to be on April the 24th. April the 23rd is a subcontracting 101 training where we're talking about the capability statements and understanding that resource that you can leverage when building relationships with prime contractors. And then we have a Certification 101 webinar where we're talking about financial documentation. So for those of you all who are interested in applying for certification, the financial document process or piece of it all is where the certification team sees the most issue. And so they're going to do a training on that on April the 30th. Okay. So, thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate your time. We went longer. We do these every quarter. So the next one we'll do will be in the 3rd quarter. And we decided to go about 30 minutes over because we wanted to make sure that we got all of the information to answer any questions. So we do hope that we've been able to provide for you. According to the chat, everybody is very happy with the presentation. Thank you, Sheena, so much. You are amazing at this. So thank you. And if you all have any questions, I send out the emails to you, so you can email me directly or you can email Sheena directly and we'll filter wherever we need to filter. All right, you all, thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful rest of the day and week.
Thank you all.